If you have just tuned in, this is Iconic Chat. Let's talk business with Mr. Daniel Steinman on your power station, Energy 100. And I'm your hostess, Elsa B. Timiani. We are talking about what is money, what does money mean to you, and what is the value of your money? It's questions that we need to ask ourselves, like very important questions. It might sound simple or, easy to answer, but when you really think about it, you will sit and you will have to draft down a whole constitution for your money, if I may say, Mr. Daniel Steinman.
Very true, Elsa, very true. Fantastic insight that you're bringing to our discussion, because that is usually the type of question that you ask about money. Now, make no mistake, when you start asking about money or pondering in your mind what is money, it's usually because you're forced to.
Yeah.
If you've got lots of money or too much of it, or a rich daddy or whatever, if you come from a rich family, you hardly ever think about what is the value of my money. But if you like 99% of us, and at some point you feel that pinch, you realize there's not enough money, then you start thinking about what is money. And to make this clearer, to easier to understand, I want to compare money to energy. So let's say Elsa B generates a certain energy every day. And we can go measure it in coulomb, or we can measure it in volts, or we can measure it in resistance, or whatever. There are various ways or various manifestations of energy. It can be straightforward electricity, it can be in another system.
Yeah.
But you generate a certain amount of energy every day, and if we add it up, 21.7 work days, Elsa B has generated so much electricity. And for argument's sake, let's say it's 1,000 volts.
Okay.
Now you can light up a fair size house with 1,000 volts. You can keep a house and a household running with 1,000 volts. That's your energy.
Yeah.
Here sits Daniel, he's retired, he's old, his mind doesn't work too well anymore. He only generates about 600 volts in a month. So immediately you see that the energy that you generate is more than the energy that I generate. And now again, you may think this is irrelevant, maybe even funny, the ha-ha type funny.
Yeah.
But it's actually very practical, very relevant, because what it means is that every single individual, every Namibian in this country has a different value of energy that he or she generates.
Okay.
I
get it.
I
get it.
Are you completing that circle now?
Yes, I am.
So it's unfortunately a fact of life. Some of us generate more energy and some of us less. And if that gap is too big, we're talking about inequality.
Quality, yeah.
And that is one of the cornerstones of development policy in Namibia, is that we cannot, rich people must be there, because they must be compensated for their leadership roles, or their entrepreneurial skills, or whatever they do in business, and poor people will always be there. That we've seen from our experience. But if the one runs away, and I know this is not a good way of expressing it, if the rich people are too rich and the poor people are too poor, then you get an upheaval. People start to rebel. And this, don't think this won't happen. Think back to 2009. The fuel prices, sky high, inflation, major issue, food prices. Can you remember all the social upheavals we had in 2009, beginning of 2010? Why? Because of the price of food. The poor people did not care that much that they are poor. The poor people started, let me rephrase that. As poor Namibians started to rebel in 2009 when we could no longer buy a simple meal once a day. In Namibia, it was very limited. In Nigeria, for instance, there were massive riots. In Egypt, I don't know how many hundred people were killed in those riots, but it has the potential to explode. And why is that? Is because of the energy that is generated by every individual. The distribution became too big.
Yeah.
The rich people were too rich, the poor people were too poor. Now, I want you to really start thinking in the back of your mind, because remember, we're talking about money. And if you don't have money, you're poor. And if you have lots of money, you're rich. But that is the simple way of
That's
looking
the
at
balance.
it. That's why I bring in this sample or this example of mine of energy. So now you need to ask yourself, how do I distribute that energy more evenly? And can you see, all of a sudden, it doesn't become, it's no longer a matter of who's got money and who doesn't got money. It's a matter of what role do you fulfill in society? What opportunity does our society afford you to generate more energy? And that is what we want. We don't need to worry about the rich people. They are in a position that they will always generate excess energy, more than what they need. We need to worry in the way that we handle money and that we distribute money. We need to worry about how much energy is generated by the poor segments of the population. And I'm not talking about middle income people. You must remember, if you're middle income, you always think you're poor. I'm talking about people that are really poor. And there's at least a third of our population in Namibia are really poor. So now this all comes back to forcing our leaders to start thinking not in terms of just figures on a piece of paper. But on the energy output of every individual. And what opportunity, what policy must I follow to increase the number of opportunities for people with a small energy output now to grow that energy output, to produce more energy. Because that is, if you look at it a little bit abstract, if your policy allows everybody to produce more energy, it translates to more money. And you solve a lot of the problems in your country.
So it's not in the terms of Biggie saying more money, more problems. In this case, more money would be a better solution for everyone. Of course, but it's all about productivity. And I want to talk in our next talk about productivity, because there is that balance. If you enable somebody to increase his energy contribution to the pool, you have increased his productivity. You have improved the amount of stuff that he can, his output, what he can produce. And this is what you must, in your economic policy, this is what you must strive to achieve. All right.
Interesting. Huh?
Very interesting talk today. And so we will leave you with two questions. Is that for this week, think about it and get your answer by the end of the week. Is what is the value of your money? And also, how much energy do you generate?
How can you generate more energy?
How can you that is the perfect question, Mr. Daniel Steinman. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our talk for today. So please take those questions and get your answers by the end of the week. We will definitely also touch on what we've talked today in next week's talk. So continue to keep it locked to the power station, Energy 100. I was your host, Elsa Bitibunyani. And of course, this was Econo Chat. Let's Talk Business with Mr. Daniel Steinman. Until next week.
Goodbye.